Welcome to Dear Future, where we explore the intersection of creativity, innovation, and technology. I'm Suki. So today we're joined by Verena Puhm, a visionary storyteller who's making waves in Europe and in the US. Verena has directed powerful docuseries like CNN's History of Sitcom and Story of Late Night, but her latest documentary, Disaster at Devil's Jaw, was co-written and co-directed by her, combines her passion for social justice with cutting-edge AI technology, offering a fresh take on historical storytelling. She's been featured in Forbes, Variety, Rolling Stone, Hollywood Reporter, and recently got an award for an AI music video with a collection of many prestigious awards, including the Cannes Corporate Media and TV Award. She's known for her ability to craft amazing, compelling narratives that challenge and inspire. Today, we're going to explore how she's using AI to revolutionize her filmmaking and what's next on her creative horizon.
This idea that everything's been done before can be challenged.
I've been dreaming of a computer like this my whole life.
It really made me think more about how our brains work.
It's not coming from anywhere else. It's only coming from us.
Dear Future.
Verena, welcome to Dear Future. Let's dive into the innovative stories you're bringing to life.
Thank you. This was a great introduction. I will take you on tour now with me wherever I go.
Yeah, I'm here just to be a jockey. Just like hang out, put me in front of people. I'll cheerlead.
I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Support each other.
Exactly. Well, so did I get anything wrong in your bio?
I love that you put the passion for social justice in, because that is something that is really dear to me. In the documentary you mentioned, which was a Navy documentary, it was about the biggest peacetime naval disaster. There was not so much social justice, but I'm a history buff, so that was well in line with what I like to do. But I have other projects that very much deal with that aspect, and I also try to combine that in future AI projects, so I'm excited to see how that will look and work out.
So let's go back to the beginning. What was your earliest experience with technology, and what were your earliest memories, the earliest indications of what you are doing today?
That's a good one. I mean, I grew up in Austria, in a little town close to Vienna, so we were not really on the forefront of a technological revolution. So whatever happened in the United States, it at least took 5 years to come to us. But I remember my dad getting a computer when I was a child. I feel like in America it came way, way sooner. I think it was around 1995, but it might have been earlier. But he got a computer, and that was fascinating for me. And when he could play Tetris and then more advanced games on it. This is great. How does this work? And I was always more a visual and creative person. So the tech aspect was kind of daunting to me. It's like, I don't know how this works. I love what it's doing. I want to do this, but on the creative side. As far as what I'm doing now and my first experience when I grew up, I always loved telling story. So I remember when my little sister, she's 7 years younger, when she was a 2-year-old probably, I forced her to play the plays that I wrote at Christmas. I mean, she loved it. I think half of it at least.
You're like, I'm the lead, you're a supporting cast. You're also the hairdresser and set designer, and I'm going to sit here and let you pamper me while we do this play.
It was more like, I'm the director.
And you will do as I say.
Exactly. I might act with you, but you're so cute, so it doesn't matter what you're going to do. It's going to look great, but please do what I'm saying. And then in school, I started writing. And for some reason, German teacher, she was very strict and she was feared by everyone in school. People left school because of her. She was that feared. But for some reason, I took it upon myself to work with her and did my thesis in German. And I ended up loving her. And I noticed that her strictness and the way she was challenging us in some ways really made me thrive and become a better storyteller. And so I'm still thankful to this day that she was scary. But negative motivation is sometimes.
You like the nag cookies. You like, fight me and I'll go to war for you.
Exactly.
Well, so tell me, from that point on, you started with this passion for storytelling and you learned through school. What was your next phase from inspiration and excitement about the craft into, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life and this is what I'm going to focus on?
I was a very stubborn child, so I very quickly decided I wanted to be in the space of storytelling, especially acting and writing. And that's what I did in school. That's what I performed, acting, singing, dancing, all of those things. And when I got out of high school, I wanted to go to an acting conservatory. And my dear mother said, no, you have to do something with which you can make money. So for some reason, and that was the only time I wavered, I decided to study economics. I was there for 2 weeks and then I left because every class was about money as the goal, the motivation, everything. And I never saw money as that. It is something that is great to have. Sure, it's a facilitator for a lot of things, but it didn't make me passionate. So very quickly after these 2 weeks, I decided to go my way and do my thing. And I signed up for some courses for the rest of the year that were more aligned with language and storytelling. And then I applied for a film school in Salzburg and I got in and I specialized on writing and directing. And that was the next 5 years for my bachelor's and master's.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you first started working in the field, what were the stories that you were drawn to and the formats that you were most excited by? Because I didn't go to film school. I don't know what it's like. But I've heard from others that you're sort of specialized and put into like a track that you follow. From that, did you feel like you knew what your track was and you had a vision of the future that you wanted to build? Or did you have a sense that there was more to explore and you were sort of expanding your horizon cinematically?
Yeah, more like expanding my horizon. The good thing about my school was that it was not that rigid. We learned everything. And when I say everything is, in the first year, we were not allowed to specialize at all. We had media design, we had animation, film, and audio. So I learned how to animate and rig a 3D model. I learned how to create a song, and I learned how to design booklets and pitch decks and logos and all of that, and the film element, which I feel like in my whole career really helped me craft my visions in a very visually appealing way. For instance, with the media design aspect. Now with AI, obviously, it's even much easier to get to that, but it really helped me in what came later to craft a coherent story, no matter what stage I was in that project. That was the first year, and then you could specialize, and I specialized in film and television, basically. And I always knew I wanted to direct, and I started just writing more to direct them. And then I refound my passion for writing and wanted to continue that.
I want to pause there. What were you writing about?
Remember when I said that Austria is a little bit different from America?
It's a technological hub of innovation and...
Yes, that's what it is. No, I love Austria and it's a great country to grow up in. But
Sound of Music, very influential. I'm the worst.
You're haunting me with this. Yeah, that's usually what people say. They say Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sound of Music. Those are the two things.
You know? I'm so sorry. I just imagine the fields.
Or
you
Australia.
Camera. Yeah. Running through
Exactly.
a nunnery.
Oh my. That's all right. You know, it's part of my story. It's part of my identity. I have to embrace it at some point.
One day you will become her. But
oh, okay.
Anyway, so your first stories.
So funnily enough, I always had an affection for the United States as a social experiment. Let's put it that way. So yeah, my stories was about people in the United States. One of the first shorts that I did was about the McCarthy era. So McCarthyism in the US and a pinup girl that has been falsely prosecuted because she made a commercial for a car brand, which turned out to be a Soviet-funded car brand. So very non-Austrian or traditional.
Very specific, super niche.
Very specific. But yeah, as I said, I'm a big history buff. So the aspect of what happened in history and how can we do it differently nowadays is something that fascinates me. So that was one of the stories. My actually first short film was about my heritage as an Austrian German. We have some dark history. I did a short about
You leaned
the
into the
Holocaust.
shadow side.
Yes. You have to. That's the only way you can learn as a person and as a society. And that is exactly what actually intrigues me about the United States, but also where I see my mission is coming from a country where we're very aware of our history. And nobody ever lets us forget it. Not even ourselves. We have museums. We learn in school ad absurdum. And it's good. It's important. And then I moved to the United States and saw the complete opposite. So those are the kind of stories that interest me, to go deep and kind of show a mirror and be like, in order to become better, you have to learn from your past and not gaslight your own people into thinking it never happened.
That is rich.
Yeah.
So in these moments where you are leaning into some crunchy experiences that maybe people would rather forget,
Yeah.
were there things that you learned about that kind of storytelling, whether it was technical or emotional, in those early years of telling these stories, especially ones that sound very vulnerable? What did you feel you took away most from that early period of time leaning into filmmaking?
So when I came here, one of my first TV series is that I developed
And when you came here, you mean?
to the United States, to
Wait.
Los Angeles.
Oh, you came straight to LA?
Yes, from Munich at that time. I was working at a production company and then came here.
Wow, what a change.
Yeah, what a culture shock. No, I love it here. And as I said, the history part was very much in my face. So when I came to Los Angeles and I wanted to write a show, I looked around, decided on an early version was about a journalist joining the Black Panther Party. And I dropped the journalist at some point and just made it about the Black Panther Party and traveled across the country, talked to the original Black Panthers, and went to all of these places where they had chapters at. And I went down a rabbit hole. The internet cannot fill all the gaps. That's why you need human contact and witnesses of what happened back then, which I was so lucky to talk to. And what I noticed was that I never had been in touch with that so much, was that the aspect of community is such an important aspect. In Austria, I grew up as just a child doing her thing, and then I grown up doing her thing, but there was not this urge to create community and help each other out in the sense that I'm now living and breathing. And I think that the Panthers also taught me that. They had over 63 survival programs back then to support the community and lift the community up. And some of them, especially the biggest one, the Free Breakfast for Children program, was the one that J. Edgar Hoover said was the biggest threat to America, which doesn't make sense if you think about it a little bit harder. It makes sense because if Black children grow up well-fed and they go to school and they can learn and they become someone, then there are a threat. So it's a long-term.
So dark.
Yeah, such a dark chapter of history, but it's important to talk about those things. So what I learned while I was traveling around talking to these people is that, storytelling, we do it all the time, especially in Hollywood, and we do it for fun, and we do it for entertainment and pastime and all of these things. But I very much also see it as a mover of change and to really especially helping people that maybe look like me change their minds. And that's where I feel like somebody like me can come in from an outside perspective, from, a European perspective. I didn't grow up in the United States. I don't have the same education or philosophical system that I grew up in. And I see its flaws and also its probably also good sides, but can then comment on it. And also, because I look like how I look, I'm accessible to people that might not think like I'm thinking and can help them change their minds.
It's so powerful to be able to have that sense of advocacy and seems like a deep mission to be able to tell stories to affect change. And I mean, I come from the documentary world, so I also feel like I drank the Kool-Aid, and I really have felt the power of being able to stand just as a witness and pointing a camera in a certain direction and saying, this is important to look at. And to do so from your vantage point is so powerful. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. I feel like there comes a lot of humility with it because these topics are not topics to take lightly. So you need a lot of respect and you need a lot of perspective. And then the humility to just know you're serving.
Yeah.
And that's a good practice for life.
Yeah.
I feel like too.
I want to move a little bit faster from this sort of early days of your storytelling towards now where the work that you're making is very experimental, on the edge, pushing these boundaries. How did you get from there to here? And then we can talk about the present moment, but what has your journey been like in the last few years, last decade, getting to this place where you are now?
So since I've been in the United States, since I've been in LA, which is about 8.5 years now, as you said, I was producing, I was writing, developing shows, I was dubbing for Netflix, all kinds of different projects.
All the hats.
All the hats. Yeah, I like them all. But one thing that bugged me, especially the last 3 years, was how long things take to get greenlit and funded. And then finally you can start, and 3 years go by. And especially as a writer, you are in this world, you're creating this whole story, which can be a feature, it can be a short, it can be a whole TV series. When you're done, you're the only person that knows about this amazing thing, and nobody else does. So, for instance, last year until this year, March, I developed a show for Terramata Studios. They're part of Red Bull Media in Austria. Amazing. It's based on a real person. She was a secret diplomat and journalist and salonier in a time where women were not that bold yet. I know this story. I know this person that deserves a spot in film history, in television history. And when people asked me this last year and this year, oh, what did you do last year? Or this, what were the projects? My answer would be like, well, there's a Variety article that you can read, but that's all you can know about this. I can tell you because I have an NDA. I mean, this is how much I can tell you about it. And it's not done yet. It's not made yet. So I have nothing to show. And that is a frustrating thing for a millennial or Gen Z. We want instant satisfaction. Where's the instant satisfaction here?
Give me sugar.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
Yes. So then AI came along and it rocked my world.
Tell me about the day. What was it
I
like?
found ChatGPT.
Bless.
I left my boyfriend. No, but it was so interesting and great. And I used it during my development of that show. So that was like the first encounter. And then came Midjourney and Luma and Runway and all of these other tools, where then the lookbooks that I've been masterfully creating because of my design background, but for hours and hours and hours, became much easier to make.
Yeah.
So I could exactly generate what I wanted.
And so in that time when you were sort of in the weeds, in the soup of image generation, what were you thinking as someone who is an actor, as a producer, as a writer? You're touching on a lot of things that others, not surprising, are very afraid of and feel very worried about. How did you feel? And did you tell anyone about what you were doing? What was the climate like at that time? And how are you feeling internally about your use of these tools?
I think I was lucky that I didn't have someone being mean to me because I was using those tools. At the beginning, I didn't really talk about it much because I usually don't talk about things if I'm not a pro in it. I'm a very humble imposter syndrome kind of type person. So as long as I have not mastered it, I will probably not talk about it much. So in the early beginnings, like the ChatGPT beginnings, I did not tell anyone except for my partner. And then when Midjourney came along and I started, just generating some things, I showed it to my little sister, and that was so much fun. Again, I'm in Austria to visit, and Austria is a little bit slower. I showed that to her, and she was like, oh my God, what? Can you do a giraffe and a turtle swimming together and hugging? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. What? So it was really fun to see her be so excited about something that I just learned, but in a totally different way because, we're all here and we hear about these things and it is a novelty, but it also is at some point you're like, yeah, you can do this. And she was just completely blown away. And that was not too long ago. So
it's like we get so jaded so fast. And when you have a beginner's mind, it's so exciting to see the joy of like, you can do what? And so from that moment of this early inception where you, just as all of us, have gotten jaded, you're still using it, and not only are you still using it, but you dove in head first and started making work with it And I'd love to know a little bit about some of the projects you've made with it and what the lessons were from them.
Yeah, I'm definitely still using them. As you said, I dove right in because I think it's such a great tool as a filmmaker to use to get that instant satisfaction that I talked about.
Sugar.
And also just to create things that are in your mind and that would take millions of dollars to make. That's also something that I always had an issue with. I'm a person, my stories cost minimum $4 to $5 million. And that's like the min.
Because you got period pieces over
Exactly.
here. You've got costumes.
Yep, exactly. So that is not easy to do. And now with AI, a lot of that can be done so much easier. Now, I'm not saying we should replace everybody and everyone. Absolutely not. But some of the things that are being made right now would never be made, period. Period. It's not about making something that would have been made and we're making it for $250 instead of $50,000. That's not the point. And that is, for instance, the point we wanted to make with the music video that we did. There was a competition called Project Odyssey, and I wanted to submit something. I teamed up with the team, and it was very clear early on that we wanted to use an artist, a real artist. We could have used and created, some audio in Suno or Udio, but we wanted to give a musical artist a chance to get a music video that would be a $500,000 project for free. Plus a lot of subscriptions and
Sort of free.
So, sort of free. But for him, it was free. He didn't have to pay for anything. And I think that was such a joy to see him light up every time we sent him some scenes or some images. He's like, oh my God, this is so cool. This is for me. This is for me as an artist that is trying to make it, and I would have never been able to afford something like that. And I get this exposure with that. And that makes my heart jump with joy because I'm very much about supporting other people and supporting each other in a community. So with that music video, we just wanted to create something that we all loved, support an artist, and play with AI and see what it was doing. And there's a lot of lessons that I can go into. So,
Girl, I'm ready for him. What did you learn? What did you use?
So we had a whole pipeline, and we're now actually doing some presentations to show people how a good workflow can look like.
Just invite me to those sessions. I'm just
Oh, yeah. We're going to have one I'm going to do a little shout out at Curious Refuge at office hours. Yeah. So mostly for image generation, we used Midjourney. And then for animation, we would use Luma and Runway. Bear in mind, that was before the latest Runway update. And Luma was way better than Runway. Now it's 50-50 right now. I'm putting images in both and see what it does and decide per image. There were certain scenes that were really hard to make, where either we had to just change the concept a little bit or fix it in post, like the old school way, like visual effects kind of vibes, Remember those days?
Yeah. Not so long ago, we had to pay somebody to go in and fix it with VFX.
Yeah, it was a job.
Yeah.
It still will be, I think. Because,
Dad, can you fix this weird arm?
Exactly.
It's jutting out of this kid's face. We can't get it to go away.
That's the struggles now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so you used Midjourney, then Luma and Runway.
Mm-hmm.
Did you use any other sort of more traditional VFX stuff?
So we used DaVinci Resolve to do most of the effects. So anything from, I don't know if we really had limbs where they're not supposed to. I tried to avoid that. But there were certain elements where, for instance, we would use something that was generated. We did use Wiggle, for instance, but then we had to outpaint some stuff. And then I guess he did that in DaVinci, or a feather. So our main character follows a feather into these different worlds. And after I generated the main character in the new world, I asked him, do you want me to generate a feather? Do you want me to do this in Midjourney? Or it doesn't sound like the best workflow. And Brian was like, yeah, no, let me see what I can do. And then he created basically a 3D feather in DaVinci Resolve and let it fly in a cone shape to make it look perfect. And so things like that, I feel like you can just outsource to something else in Luma and Runway because they probably don't give you what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And with the old school effects in post-production, you can still really much get that.
Controllability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had this whole pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
You made the thing.
Yes.
What were the biggest lessons and takeaways? Because you just made this.
Yes. So many. So I usually work by myself. So working in a team with AI is a whole different thing. First of all, because I feel like AI, you need a little bit of wiggle room with creativity. So in a team, how do you do that? Do you give that creativity to the people? Do you, yeah, you see where I'm going with?
It's prompting.
Yeah. So what I try to get done at the very beginning is just have a style reference and have everyone on the same page. We had certain scenes. Some scenes were assigned to some people and then they could generate. And we had a whole workflow of basically they generate things, give it to me and my co-director, and then we would approve things. Then they could animate it or we would animate it depending on how much time there was left and stuff. And one of the challenges was, I mean, we were all kind of like working remote. So I mostly was on Zoom meetings every day, for 5 hours. And then you're just like, oh, I feel like we're in COVID times.
Yeah, Zoom face.
Yeah. And then we, uploaded everything in Google Drive. And Brian was the one that was editing. His Google Drive didn't update. So there were like technical issues. But I think we learned a lot on how we can efficiently make a workflow go for such a project now and just positions in this project. When you're working with AI at a typical film set, you know the positions and you also know what your position is. With this one, especially when we're done, Maddie, my co-director, Brian and I were sitting there together, one of the 2 times we were actually together in a room, and we looked at the credits page and we're like, what are we? How do you phrase it? Are we AI artists?
Yeah.
Prompt engineers?
Yeah.
I prompt engineer. We were brainstorming for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And those positions are not actually here yet.
This is a really important point that I wanted to get into, and I'm glad you brought it up. It's this idea that we're in a world that hasn't been crystallized yet, and so our identities haven't quite landed.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious, not only what the names that came up were, but also how you feel about your identity now that you are starting to play with these tools.
Yeah.
We've had some guests who have criticized sort of the nature of like the AI artist, and then other people who feel really excited about naming themselves as AI artists, even if they come from traditional filmmaking. And I'm just curious how you fall on that spectrum, and also what names that exist right now that you feel like you're like, what is this going to become? Who am I in this strange landscape?
Who am I? We all have like this crisis, identity crisis now. I was really excited because I always wanted to direct. And I did when I came out of school. And then for greenlighting reasons and budgeting reasons, I kind of found myself in a space where I rather wrote or produced already funded projects. And the idea of having to raise my own money to direct the thing that I want was just so daunting to me. Especially, $4.5 million. And we're not talking about a $20,000 short film. That would not cut it for me. So I felt this urge of wanting to direct, but I also knew that the stories that I was telling were just too high budgeted. So when AI came along and I started to direct, so now I call myself a Gen AI director, and maybe that changes because then we finally have a word for it. But I finally got this agency back where I could be a director and do what I love, but I don't need millions of dollars to do it. So it filled something up here. Right here in my heart.
So I think maybe that's where we land, right? Is just you're a generative AI director right now, but you're a director at the heart of things.
Yes.
And the medium through which you're expressing that happens to be Gen AI.
Yes. And I think sometimes it will be a hybrid. With a project that I'm developing right now, which is a TV series for Europe, I don't think it's all going to be AI. Like some things don't make sense yet. So I think a hybrid might be a good solution for right now and, going into the future.
Let's talk about the future. Last question.
Make it a good one.
What is it? No, just kidding.
What is the future? Wow, that is a very meta question.
What is it good
How
for?
much time do we have?
Yeah, absolutely nothing. No, I think the last question I have is, as we move into a landscape that is really unknown, a world that to both of us is quite unknown, how do you see yourself sort of navigating the field, and what do you look forward to in the future that is, if not here, it's coming?
So what I'm most excited about right now is going to all of these meetups being in this community that is still not jaded, that is still very much, hey, let's support each other. I don't know how to do this. Let me help you. I'm going to show you. Just collaborative spirit that is going on that I feel like the film and television industry has lost a little bit. And with that, I feel there's going to be so many ways opening up where we can all collaborate together. And there will be some people, they just want to do it for fun and for sports, and that's awesome and that's great. And then there's others that actually want to make that a career. And we will see where everyone lands. But right now, we're all kids in a sandbox and are throwing dirt around. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. And I like that part. I like to get dirty and just be like, let's play with this and throw color against the wall and see what it does. And that's where I see myself right now. And in the future, I hope that as far as entertainment goes, we can bring AI and, old school filmmaking together, help the old schoolers understand how these tools can actually make a project be more affordable. Not because you're having less people on the floor, but actually because the act of doing it or the rendering takes less time. Or we don't have to charter a plane to go to the rainforest and disturb all of these animals to get this shot. We can actually do it on our computer. So we don't have to, hurt the environment and the animals. And I know there is a little bit of a footprint there too, but much less. And as far as for me, I'm exploring Gen AI directing in the ad space as well. So I've been talking to some ad agencies, and that is something that is exciting to me. And I still want to be true to my narrative passion and just create the social justice-oriented projects that I love. That with a little sparkle of AI.
Just a little sauce.
Yeah.
Because the show is called Dear Future, what is the first thing you would say in a letter addressed to the future?
Oh my God. When you said Dear Future, I already had it. And I was like, this is so dark. Why are you going there? It's like, Dear Future, please don't kill us.
It's so real.
I mean, it's inevitable at some point, right? But I hope for the future, hey man or woman, please make AI do the good things that we're trying and wanting to see in the world and tone down the bad things. We don't need them. And just be kind and sweet to us, because I know we were assholes. We have been since we've been on this earth. It's
Dear Future, be kind to us.
please.
That's pretty good.
So I guess that would be it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a great way to end it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's been great. So that's a wrap for today's conversation. A huge thank you to you, Verena, for taking us on a journey through your creative experiences, your visions of the future. It's been really eye-opening to see the world through your eyes and to understand where you've come from and how much you care about this craft, but also how much potential you see in it moving forward, and really leading the charge in this space of playing with AI. For all of the listeners, if Verena's approach has sparked your imagination as it has ours, please make sure to follow her upcoming projects. You will not want to miss them. The future of storytelling is in very good hands with innovators like her. And a special thanks to the incredible team at Echo Bend Studios, whose passion and creativity bring this podcast to life every week. Their work behind the scenes is nothing short of magic, and I can't recommend checking out their work enough. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, drop a review, and share it with the creative community. We'll be back with more inspiring voices from the front lines of creativity and technology very soon. Until then, please keep pushing your own creative limits, and as always, keep telling your story. See you next time.
Dear Future.